Now at 6, terrified neighbors in North Seattle are barricading their own streets after bullets tear through homes.
For about a week, 3 roads off Aurora Avenue were blocked by large metal planters that neighbors installed without the city's permission.
Seattle has now spent $12 million on legal fees and payouts related to the inaction that resulted in 2 deaths, 4 shootings, arson, and several alleged sexual assaults.
CHOP, the Capitol Hill organized protest, was an occupation that followed a week of high tensions between Black Lives Matter protesters and the Seattle Police Department. In an effort to de-escalate the situation, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan ordered police to abandon the East Precinct.
Anderson's family calls it a complete failure.
Our government failed us. Our city and our state representatives failed us. Our federal government failed us. The CHOP should have never happened. It shouldn't have been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks.
So Mayor Wilson says the violence is unsettling. Police have increased overnight patrols. But Harris, the city says those barricades are illegal, will have to come down because they didn't get a permit.
This is so Seattle. Dating from Jason Rant. Seattle tore down residents' Aurora Avenue barricades in just 3 days. They had 3 blissful days of no shootings, no pimp on pimp shootings. But the city of Seattle said, no, we can't have that. We can't have peace and prosperity. We need to have pimp shootings just continue on unabated. And then Jason compares this to it let the CHAZ fester for weeks. And this is something I've been thinking about. Seattle Department of Transportation actually brought in the barricades for CHAZ. In today's story, you've got citizens who don't want the violence in their literal front yards. So they do it themselves. And the city says, Let's get into it. I remember one of right before CHAZ ended, right before it was taken down, Seattle Police Department went in and just eradicated those stinky commies, right? Because that's what they were. They were Antifa. They were Black Lives Matter. They were stinky commies. Right before they did that, they did kind of a false flag event where they were basically testing the waters to see how many of Antifa were left before they shut it down. And what they did is they stacked up, I don't know, probably a dozen big Seattle Department of Transportation trucks, the flatbeds, with the loaders that move the barricades around, the concrete barricades. And what we're talking about here is, we're talking about some feed containers. They call them grow containers that you can get at a hardware store or a feed store. And residents bought these with their own money and filled them up with stuff because it makes for a barricade where the pimps don't want to go down that road. They can't go down that road without smashing their Maserati, right? As they all have Maseratis. Seems to be the pimp vehicle of choice. But this is just, it kind of shows the insanity of where Seattle sits on the political spectrum from the standpoint of public safety. Barricades put up to give weary residents a few days, peace from the ongoing. There's been 94 shootings in the last few years in this section of Aurora because Seattle just allows criminal activity to just hey guys, get out there and do your thing. We know that you're good people deep down inside and we're rooting for you. So we're going to let you go again and again and again. And that's how you have sex trafficking just absolutely off the hook on Aurora. And then the pimps run around and shoot each other. The pimps are really bad shots. You know what? So much of this, I think, is if you look at the ratio of shots fired to shots that hit or actually have an impact, these are all just, they're kind of trying to, they're basically scaring away their competition. And I got to admit, I tend to run from bullets. Lord, let's go the other way. I don't want to be around that, even if it's off in the woods, distance. It's just some guy. He's scoping in his rifle, taking some shots, right? But the fact that one of the very last things that Seattle Department of Transportation did is they had these big trucks and they brought them into CHAZ, and that was a determination to see what kind of resistance was left there. And that was a day or two before. And the animals of CHAZ got really worked up. Oh, you can't take our barricades. Well, SDOT was taking back the barricades that they put up. Now, if we get into the weeds, if you take a look at this idyllic street, other than the, barricades from the pimps whooshing down this street and then randomly shooting at one another, if you put that, little bit of detail aside, it looks like a pretty calm neighborhood. These people, when things just started to get bad for them, they put up a barricade. Just like the southern border. But these people, vast majority, Democrats, they believe in open borders, except for when it impacts their own neighborhood. You know what I mean? So what was going to be Jenny Durkin's Summer of Love turned out to be a murder festival. 2 black kids got murdered, and one of them, which is true, you can't get an ambulance in there. So now they've got these kind of traffic detractor. They just slow traffic down. They don't stop it. So I call them like wavy barricades in the street. If you go through there hauling with a sports car, you're going to be able to do 60 in through those. Just, know what I mean? Just, you're going to be able to do that. But these poor people, they're all, the vast majority are liberals, vast majority are Democrats, and they're under siege. They put up their own barricades, and the city takes them down. These are the same people that are probably like, oh, defund the police. Black Lives Matter. Okay, yeah, but now you've got this whole thing going on literally in your front yard, not your backyard, your front yard. It's a bunch of posturing. It's a bunch of posing. It's Seattle. And we wonder why businesses are leaving. Weird. City handed 6 blocks to Antifa militants for weeks. Couldn't tolerate some planter barricades on Aurora Avenue, intended to help curb violence for 3 days. This is Seattle. So true. Picture this, a neighborhood getting shot up so regularly that a bullet nearly killed a 6-week-old sleeping baby sleeping in a crib. Residents, fed up and ignored for years, drag out planters and barricades to stop the drive-by shooters from using their streets as an escape route. 3 days pass. No shootings. It works. Oh, we can't have that getting out. We can't have that information out there to the general public. They might put up barricades everywhere. Seattle becomes land of the barricades. Mayor Katie Wilson's response: take them down. Well, it was a liability issue, wasn't it? We get sued again. This is not going to be good. It's never going to happen. This happened this week in North Seattle along Aurora Avenue, where prostitution-fueled gang turf wars have turned residential side streets into active firing ranges. Mayor's office calls the barricades unacceptable, citing concerns about first responder access. Yeah, she's not wrong about that specific problem, Jason says. Blocking emergency vehicles from reaching a corridor, drowning in violence is a genuine and somewhat ironic issue, right? But that is not what is outrageous here. What is outrageous is the speed and the context. And that's what I've been kind of thinking. There was an attempted rape of a deaf woman. You got to always throw that one in there. I mean, CHAZ was just off the hook. It was just like, what is going on here? It was so mental. It was nuts. Businesses were shaken down. Arson was attempted. Cops assaulted. National embarrassment. It was the summer of love. Now planners go up on Aurora. Residents report 3 straight shooting-free nights. And the mayor's office snaps into action within days. It was literally just a handful of days. We can't have peace and prosperity. That's a hard no-go. That's a no-go. Mayor Wilson orders removal of resident-built barricades along Aurora Avenue after drive-by shootings. I mean, it's we're living in the down under, meaning things that should be happening aren't happening. Like citizens shouldn't have to worry about being gunned down by stray pimp on pimp gunfire. This isn't gun violence, folks. This is pimp violence. This is pimps shooting one another because pimping ain't easy. Pimping ain't easy. You got to get out there. You got to defend your turf. You got to keep those girls in line. I mean, you got to do whatever it takes, right? That's terrible. Terrible. Just a bunch of women being trafficked. And it spills over to these neighborhoods, and the neighborhoods go, we got to do something. Barricade up, which I don't have a problem with. I thought City of Seattle would leave them there for maybe a week. But then clearly, obviously, the liability factor came in. If we get sued again, this isn't going to go our way. We're already 0 for 1 on a big decision. Seattle has liability when they do crazy stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because the whole factor with the Antonio Mays Jr., which is the lawsuit, the lawsuit came down to, had you been able to get an emergency medical vehicle or EMTs in there? How about this one? North Seattle nonprofit leader, Aurora Pimp War has completely gotten out of control. And we are talking about Christine Moreland of The More We Love. She does outreach, like the way I explain it, she does outreach for the girls walking on Aurora and women being trafficked in the state of Washington, Puget Sound area, kind of like Andrea Suarez does for the homeless in Seattle, does outreach and, those kinds of things. But she basically says, we're the ones that work with the victims of all this. The women are being exploited who are caught in the crossfire. But we also stand in a space united with the community and the business leaders and the neighbors and the businesses themselves and saying enough is enough. Like, this has completely gotten out of control. And we certainly as a city have the resources and the willpower, I believe, to put a stop to it. You know what's ignored is, what about going after those pimps? What if we just incarcerated all those pimps for pimping? Well, you've got to have a dossier on all these guys that thick, right? All right, you got 14 girls and sex trafficking. They got to have stuff on these guys 10 ways from Sundays, but they don't arrest them because why? Oh, we're tolerant of this kind of thing. We're okay with it. We're actually okay with pimp on pimp shootings. It's just that it doesn't happen to the vast majority of the city. It only happens to the unfortunate few. And when they put up barricades, Seattle says, no, citizens bad, SDOT good. Literally what they've done. That's literally what they've done. North Seattle families have endured 95 shootings in the Aurora corridor over 2 years. 2 bullets tore through the wall of a home above a Bassinet, holding a 5-week-old. I mean, that's kind of the, oh, good Lord, that's not good. Baby gets killed. Ugh, terrible, terrible. But unfortunately, this is what we were talking about during Chop and CHAZ, was, hey, something bad might happen here. And it did. 2 black kids got gunned down. One by another black kid, Marcel Long, I believe it was. And the other kid got gunned down by Antifa and Black Lives Matter members who were holed up outside of the East Precinct because the SDOT event had already happened, I think the day before. They came out with all their trucks idling blocks away while it wasn't even the mayor's office that came out. It was some representative. It was some cheesy representative out there negotiating with a bunch of Antifa members who were like little children. Little children. They don't even count as full grown-ups. You know what I mean? They're little children. That's what we want. Well, you're about to get cleared out there, Spike. You know what I mean? You're about to get demolished. And so city leadership was like, oh, okay, so this is how many we have. This, basically protesting, having the barricades taken down. They got a real good look at how many people were going to rise up in that final day. And they sent in however many police officers, just boom, July 1st. just absolutely shellacked what was left of CHAZ, of Black Lives Matter, of Antifa. Because the summer of love ended up being the summer of disaster for Seattle. Hey, look at what happens in Seattle when a bunch of Democrats let, these anarchists basically take control. Could be the summer of love. Boy, that is forever going to go down in infamy, isn't it? Of maybe you shouldn't have said that. Maybe this isn't going to age all that well. Here's a more recent one. Seattle removed the Aurora Avenue planters and installed barriers a driver can pass right through. The pimps and prostitutes were back by Thursday night. As they do. Pimping ain't easy, people. They just drop the hammer, sometimes shoot at competitors. I mean, it's a tough gig. Your Maserati gets bullet holes in it. I mean, you got to put some Bondo on that Maserati. The reason I'm reading this one is because it's from Charlie Harger. The fifth piece I have written about the pimp war on Aurora Avenue in 12 days. I am running out of new ways to describe it. 95 shootings in 2 years, 7 in the last 2 weeks, Bassinet, 13 shell casings, city bus, school bus stop, Glock switch firing on a residential street. Glock switch, if you're not familiar, is a switch that can be installed on a Glock that makes it go from semi-automatic, meaning each time you pull the trigger, a round is fired and it'll fire as fast as you can pull that trigger, to hold the trigger down, automatic fire. Switch does that. Just, boom, 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 boom. Father counting rounds instead of sleeping. A neighbor recording a video of his living room window for evidence. All this stuff has happened. And what does Seattle leadership do? Get rid of the barricades. We might get sued. Instead of, hey, what about a real crackdown on the pimps? I mean, so the girls are committing crimes as well. That's fine. Make that make sense. Aurora Avenue, been a rough stretches for decades. Prostitution, cheap motels. It's where, I've talked about this before. Kurt Cobain, Nirvana fame.